Ladies and gentlemen, welcome aboard the TV Pilot's License with service to the Greendale Community College. We ask that you please fasten your headphones, secure your podcasting device, and remember that just because all of our pilots earned our licenses from community college doesn't mean it isn't any less valuable because we used a Kentucky Fried Chicken space simulator for our final exam.
Welcome to the TV Pilot's License. My name is Geoff Purvis, but you can call me Hefe, and I am joined by Max Singer and Rich Inman. How you boys doing today?
Oh God, we're going back to school. I'm so stoked about this.
Oh, I am delighted to be here today, guys.
Oh my
nice.
God. Rich, now you do one.
Oh shit. Streets ahead.
Cool. Well, boys, this week, I think we are hitting a TV show that when we came up for this podcast, we all had in mind. We are talking about Community. But before we do so, Max, do you mind telling folks what this podcast is all about?
Here at TV Pilot's License, we break down and analyze the pilot episodes of some of TV's most famous, or in some cases, infamous shows. We learn a little bit more about how these shows came to be and were originally made, if they're effective pilot episodes and making us want to watch more, and if we think they can be made today. Go back and stream our episodes from wherever you get podcasts. Check us out on YouTube and TikTok to see our smiling faces. While you're out there, like, subscribe, follow. It helps us so much. Those follows and subscriptions go such a long way. Next time you see your parents, take their devices, say you're doing software updates, subscribe to our podcast on all their devices. It helps us so much. And if it is your first time flying with us, then welcome aboard.
And Rich, what is your question of the week?
Well, so every episode of Community is, cleverly given the title of it's like a short synopsis of every episode that ties into the name of a potential community college class. They get pretty extreme. But I would love to know if you were going to go back to school and start teaching at a community college right now, what real or abstract thing would you teach kids or old men at a community college right now?
Oh my God. Well, I'll kick us off because I actually took a class at our alma mater called Lying Through Statistics. That is correct. It was all about how magazine scientific studies will basically create statistics that are terrifying, but they are a lie because of small sample sizes or gigantic sample sizes, and how you could make basically it was very interesting. It was also a very dumb course at the same time. No shame against whoever's teaching that now. But as far as myself and what I would be teaching, I think I need to be teaching folks how to cross the street. Yes, you might be wondering, why is Geoff teaching people how to cross the street? I'm not convinced anyone fucking knows how to cross the street anymore. I've seen people run through intersections a few times these days. In LA, you can't even fucking jaywalk, which is bullshit. And I think that people
you can
just
now.
need to...
Oh, new legal update from Rich's Legal Corner. You can they will not arrest you for jaywalking anymore.
Go and jaywalk. But yeah, I think people need to learn how to cross the street properly, and I am that guide. I can be your teacher and savant. Max, what about you?
Well, I'm a believer in the old adage of those who can't do teach. And so I will be teaching how to fold a fitted sheet at community college this fall. As long as I stay one class ahead of my students, in just 16 weeks, they too can learn how to fold a fitted sheet.
You're just watching a YouTube at like 0.8 speed. I think I'm going with appreciating jam bands 101.
Ooh.
One of my favorite classes that I took in college was the music of Jimi Hendrix, which is basically
awesome.
Yeah, it was one of the coolest classes. He doesn't have, he died pretty young, so he doesn't have like a massive catalog of music, but I just got to have like a new appreciation for all the songs I already knew. And yeah, I just absolutely adored it.
That class is fun because Rich will stray from the syllabus for about 20 minutes, and then when he gets back to the topic, everyone applauds.
Oh, there you go. Max, I guess Rich and I both gave a class that was like sort of a little bit off the beaten path in our academic careers. Has there been a course that you took that you were like, this might have been a community college course secretly being taught at a major university?
Oh man, I took a class at our alma mater, kind of similar to Rich's, and it was a history of Motown class, and it was one of my favorite courses I took, and I learned a ton about it. But we had entire classes that were dedicated to learning dance moves, and there was one class where we just like had lunch. That was the class.
Fuck yeah.
It was just like, I'm going to bring in lunch and we're going to listen to records. And today's just like an appreciation day. And I was like, sweet, I just got 2 credits. This rules.
That's amazing. Well, Rich, thank you so much for your question of the week. Let's dive a little bit deeper into community. And we're going to start off with this is a beefy synopsis, boys, so get ready and buckle in.
You like the brief synopsis? Today's the beef synopsis.
A former lawyer attends a community college when it is discovered he faked his bachelor's degree. In an attempt to get with a student in his Spanish class, he forms a Spanish study group. To his surprise, more people attend the study group, and the group of misfits forms an unlikely community.
He said it. He said the word.
That is the longest for a 20-minute pilot that we are about to talk about. That is a gigantic synopsis.
I'm very curious too about the plot hole of like he faked his bachelor degree, but he got a normal law degree. So I don't know how is he still passed the bar?
I mean, or to our knowledge, yes, he did. But Max, I'm curious, how did this show come to be and get made?
Today, we are talking about the pilot episode of Community, which originally aired on September 17th, 2009 on NBC. And we are talking about the show's creator, Dan Harmon. Our journey today begins in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, where Harmon cut his teeth in the improv group Comedy Sports. See, Dad, I did play a sport. In 1997, Harmon's writing partner, Rob Schrab, sells the film rights to a comic book he wrote to Oliver Stone, and the pair moves to Los Angeles with the hope that Schrab's sale will allow them a chance at writing the script. They don't get the writing gig, but a spec script the duo writes called Big Ant Movie, or about giant ants taking over the world, lands the pair an agent and a development deal with acclaimed director Robert Zemeckis. One of the projects will be made years later in 2006 as the Academy Award-nominated animated film Monster House. The duo lands a TV deal with ABC to produce a pilot, a deal the two attempt to finagle their way out of soon after. They create a show proclaimed by Harmon and Schrab to be, quote, our favorite TV show ever. ABC passes on the script, but it lands in the hands of Ben Stiller, who directs a pilot for Fox called Heat, Vision, and Jack.
Yes! I love it. Oh.
We done it.
Yep, we're getting this in here today. Absolutely. We just retconned. Actually, spoiler, folks, we're not talking about Community. Ha ha ha. For those unfamiliar, Heat, Vision, and Jack stars Jack Black as Jack Austin, a U.S. astronaut given superintelligence from exposure to solar energy, and Owen Wilson as Heat Vision, his talking motorcycle. Fox passes.
Why? It sounds like aggressively.
But the show has found life as an underground classic online, while Harmon and Schrab focus their efforts on the Los Angeles-based monthly short film festival Channel 101, being the co-creators of the Sarah Silverman program and Channel 101's cable spin-off at VH1, Acceptable TV. In the midst of all this, Harmon begins developing a new pilot based on his own experiences of taking a Spanish class with a then-girlfriend at Glendale Community College as an activity to do together to try to save their relationship. Harmon himself joined a study group and found himself growing close to his classmates who he had nothing in common with. When Harmon took a meeting with NBC to discuss potential development ideas for shows, that Spanish class paid off as a, quote, simple, grounded, and realistic idea, as Harmon put it. The pilot, along with 33 other episodes of this series, was directed by Joe and Anthony Russo of Marvel Cinematic Universe fame, and it is worth noting that the version that we see on streaming services today is the syndicated cut, meaning that a few scenes have been removed or shortened to help keep its runtime under 22 minutes for advertiser space.
Oh.
Yeah. Yeah, that's kind of the bummer.
I want my deleted scenes.
Yeah, so the version you're going to see on Peacock, which is now the home for Community, is going to be just a titch under 22 minutes long. The original NBC pilot 2009 was a little bit over 24 minutes. When you're showing it for the first time, you can stretch things out. You can make your own rules. You can overlap. You can cut into your own advertising space. When you sell it to syndication, you got to keep it to like a tight 22 so you can get 8 minutes of Doritos ads at 2 p.m. on Comedy Central on a Wednesday.
Sick.
So that is the version that you will now see on Peacock.
I love the idea that we'll talk more about Dan Harmon, I'm sure, but like Dan Harmon's just sitting there with his then girlfriend, and he's like, what's the best way to improve our relationship? Not only going to community college, but adding the stress of tests, pop quizzes, cold calling in a Spanish class, learning a new language altogether, and then all of that with the stress of a relationship as a nice little bow on top is the type of mindset I feel like only Dan Harmon might have.
Men would rather attempt to learn a new language as a fully formed adult than go to therapy.
Well, boys, let's dive into this pilot. And rather than going beat by beat, even though this is only 22 minutes, let's just talk about what this pilot presented to us, which is in the beginning, we start off learning via great exposition of why are we here on this day at Greendale Community College? What is community college? And via this great speech from the dean, we get the idea of who are our major players.
Hey, put some respect on future Academy Award winner Jim Rash when you say the
Hell
dean.
Yeah.
That's right. They do such a quick and easy job of like, it almost feels like cheating the way that they do the exposition for this for this part of the show. It's one of my favorite cold opens of a TV show period, of just like, we're gonna give you every single stereotype of someone who comes to community college, and that's eventually going to be the actual classmates involved.
The thing that I remember watching this pilot the first time, which was in 2009 when it premiered, is like, we all started our freshman year of college at the same time as the show coming on. And it almost felt like, one, holy shit, are we old? But two, it felt sort of nice to have this idea of following these characters as they experience the concept of collegiate learning for the first time as well, despite various different backgrounds being presented.
On the topic of this show premiering when we started college, I actually was in a focus group before the pilot aired on NBC after starting at Indiana for Community, and they were like, hey, come check out this new unaired NBC pilot and give us feedback that we could probably use for quotes and things like that. And I got like keychains and pencils. I used so many NBC branded Community pencils my first semester of college. I was stoked about that.
That's
what
awesome.
I do love about Greendale College, though, I love the little chyron that says 3 blocks from your home. I like the idea of a show in a universe that in its pilot just sets up the idea of this could be anywhere and everywhere, that it's 3 blocks from your house. Doesn't matter where you're watching this.
Yeah.
It's not going to be as locale specific as a 30 Rock or an Office. It just kind of exists. It's not as specific as, say, we don't know where Springfield is in The Simpsons, but it kind of sets up, and I forget if they ever do establish where exactly it is.
Colorado.
Okay, who cares? I like the idea that it's 3 blocks from your house.
Yeah, exactly.
That it is, and you can play with rules and you can play with all these things because it doesn't need to be anywhere.
So let's talk about some of the characters that we come to meet via this first scene. And our protagonist in this first episode is Geoff. Geoff, the lawyer who we come to learn faked and lied through a few of the things that you need to have to technically be a well-respected lawyer. But I love the choice of using Abed as our second character that we're introduced to of this crew, with just a very simple idea of we have an oversharer who can almost act as a human exposition device for us, but also say some great one-liners where it's just like when he introduces the concept of Britta, the female lead of this pilot, just saying a joke of, oh, her brother has a disorder I may want to look up, when describing Britta as a human being for us.
I like that, and Geoff, you've talked about kind of the general theme. Jeff Winger has lost his state bar. It's been suspended. He needs to, go back to college to get it. But we don't begin with that. There is a very structured version of this pilot that plays by the rules too much, where it begins with Jeff enrolling in community college. But Community doesn't do that. Community is lived in, and it picks up in the middle of a day between classes, with Jeff and Abed doing a walk and talk. And what I love about this up top is that it feels a little lived in already. We do the thesis question, we do the cold open, and then we're kind of just in these characters' clothes already. And it just feels easy. It doesn't feel like we're trying to set up something big immediately.
Rich, I'm curious from your perspective, because this is a show that definitely has, outside of the pilot, a lot of mythology behind it, right? There's a lot of depth to this universe once you get outside of the first episode. But they keep it, even though we meet a lot of different characters, they keep it fairly tight as far as the spaces that we go with these characters. We go to a quad, we go to a library, maybe a half second, one scene in the cafeteria, and then Professor Duncan's office, that gives me nightmares as well. What were you thinking as, like, yeah, there's a lot, but also it seems fairly well constructed to keep our attention as what we're going to be getting into?
Yeah, they do almost no location scouting for this entire for this show. They I was in figuring out my game of the week. I was reading some facts about the show, and the entirety of the first season only takes place in and on campus. There is at no point do they leave and go elsewhere. But what this also means is that you're focusing so much on establishing the characters and the side characters the most, like in the sense that, like, Seinfeld always used like these side characters and gave them their own arcs and brought them back over and over again. The people who are going to be at this community college are not one and done people. It is like, you are going to be here for a while, except for like the teacher of the week thing that they were doing for a long time. It is so crucial that they establish the universe and the relationships of these characters individually. I mean, which is why we get, like, the exposition is so fast in this. Like, you feel like you know everybody by maybe 12 minutes into this pilot.
So, Max, I feel like this show does something very important that you love very much, in that we almost have a secret getting the crew together moment in this show. So I'd love for you, as is TV Pilot's licensed tradition, to let us know a little bit about our crew.
And I don't think it's a secret. It's really well established early on what a film buff that Abed, played by Danny Pudi, is. So it's it's very intentional that we're getting a crew together here. He'd be very proud of this conversation. So basically, Geoff is going to con his way into getting to know this character of Britta, the female student who he has the hots for, played by Gillian Jacobs. And to get to know her, he lies about being a board-certified Spanish tutor and is going to put together a Spanish study group. However, his oversharing companion of Abed is going to invite everyone from class to this group. And now Geoff's plan of having one-on-one conversation with Britta to win her affection turns into him having to actually pose as this fraud in front of a lot of people. And we do a great job of getting them all in an enclosed space. So what I love about Community, again, is it takes a bunch of strangers, it sets a high tension of we all need something, and then it puts them in a locked room. And then it takes the catalyst out of that room. And then we just kind of see what happens. And Rich, to your point, this show exists in real time and real space. You are kind of limited because you're on a small community college campus. So you're going to have close proximity, which is going to build relationships. You can't just bail out of scenes. Then we get basically one or two lines for each person around the horn. you know your log lines essentially for each of them, and your ensemble is set, and it does it so clean, so well. You get just enough to understand who you're following for a season arc, but not so much that you don't know whose pilot it is. It's very clear that this is a show about Jeff Winger still.
So let's just go through some of these characters that we meet, right? We know about Jeff's backstory. It seems like Britta is 28, sort of, was rebellious and is trying to find herself.
Wearing the most 2009 indie sleaze outfit imaginable. the tee, like the American Apparel tee with the unbuttoned vest and the skinny jeans over it. It is just absolutely screaming indie rock. If there wasn't a hard Matt and Kim needle drop in this show already, I would have said she's going to a Matt and Kim concert.
Let's see. We also have Shirley Bennett, who is mom, played by Yvette Nicole Brown, who might have a little bit of a temper, but also might be playing nice when also having a lot going on in her background.
They give the most like tip of the iceberg nod to Shirley's past, that oh yeah, she's a God-fearing woman, she's a mom, but my God, she's done some shit.
Yeah,
but that's all you need. That's all you need. All you need is a tip of the cap in the pilot.
Figure that out in season 3.
That's also the beauty of it, is that it gives us and it feeds us of if we just learn a little bit about why they're here, we have an episode, 2-3 episodes down the line where we just focus on Britta's past as this rebellious or trying to be rebellious human. Mm-hmm. Additionally, we have Donald Glover playing Troy Barnes, this burnout athlete who lost his scholarship trying to do, and I have this written down in my notes, a keg flip, which is much harder than a keg stand, which I love. I feel like this, outside of Derek comedy, this is really the first time that we're seeing Donald Glover star in something that is getting national attention. And right off the bat, for that to be one of his first lines that he says, and he absolutely nails it, is so goddamn impressive.
He got, in his entire time at 30 Rock, which was 3 years, he got 2 words on screen.
Let's see. We only have a couple more folks, and one of them is Alison Brie playing Annie Edison, who seems to not belong.
This is one of her first breakout roles, right? I don't remember her in anything before this.
Well, the funny part is she also has Mad Men going on at the
Mad
same
Men first?
Yeah, at the same exact time as this show. So on one side you have this super sexy drama, and then on the other side you have this this show that is definitely not a super sexy drama, and some might say a little bit less serious. And then let's talk about the racist in the room. Excuse me, Chevy Chase playing Pierce Hawthorne, which really isn't that much acting for Chevy Chase. I say this.
Listen, I'm not defending Chevy Chase.
Hold on, Max Singer, Chevy Chase apologist is coming back.
Let's put this on TikTok. Max apologizes for Chevy Chase's behavior.
It is a show, though, that calls it out from the jump, and I think that's really effective, is immediately Pierce Hawthorne, played by Chevy Chase, is called out for his behavior and has to learn. It's not a show that apologizes for Pierce. It's not a show that lets Chevy Chase get away unchecked. These are written, scripted lines that then are called out for their ignorance and their lunacy, and it allows for learning moments. And we take essentially, people say, you could never do All of the Family in, the 2010s, that people would never allow for an Archie Bunker. And Community basically says, what if we did? What if we put Archie Bunker in adult education in the 21st century, and he had to relate to all of people meatheads age in 2009, 2010, and what would that look like?
Yeah, I mean, this is, I give Dan Harmon a lot of credit when it comes to creating a character like this, because it's very similar to what we saw in Girls Five Eva with the character of Larry, right? You have this despicable human being that everyone understands is despicable, and everyone says, you can't say that, while also still letting them exist on the show and knowing, hey, even if we don't have a problem, we have the character of Pierce, who is just a walking problem and can cause commotion for us week after week.
I think what was a good choice up top in the script was roasting everyone a little bit. The dean roasting each person like just a little bit on why they're there. And I think Pierce got like the absolute worst one, obviously, of being like
sure.
an elderly person circling the drain of eternity. I think that was the
Yes.
or like a perpetual elderly student circling the drain of eternity. Because like you need to take Pierce down a couple pegs immediately, otherwise he's just going to be like, oh, he's going to be the problematic one. He's not like you do like eventually see some softness in him. You do eventually. I mean, the arc of him getting like more and more frail is also like important, I think, in his and understanding a bit more about his family eventually. But yeah, initially crazy thought to put Chevy Chase as like an aging racist in this.
It's insane saying all of these names though that are in this cast, because now, we're 15 years later, and these folks, many of them extremely successful careers.
We haven't we've left people out of our main ensemble.
Yes,
that's to say nothing about who plays our protagonist in Joel McHale. That's to say nothing about Academy Award winner Jim Rash in this cold open for half a second. That's to say nothing for, you mentioned a certain professor's office that gave you anxiety, Geoff. Played by fucking John Oliver. I mean, this show is just stacked.
This might be a wait a minute moment, but I need to bring it up now. Does John Oliver in this pilot sound more British than John Oliver does currently now? Yes, I know he's been living in the US for 15 years, and that might have an effect, but like, low key, I was just like, oh, there's a little bit more of an accent there, John. What happened? Have you been in New York?
Hearing John Oliver exclaim, "The average person has a hard time saying booyah to moral relativism," is a line that he will repeat for a decade straight and win so many Emmys for.
Oh my gosh. Well, our main crux, our main problem, this study group, Geoff trying to get Britta's number and take her on a date, that really takes us throughout the majority of the episode. But I think one of the keys and formulas of this episode in having Geoff as our hero is our hero needs to save the day. But what's interesting is Geoff has caused all of the problems in this episode for the most part. And I love having this moment at the end of this pilot where we get this big, rousing speech by Geoff that has small hints of comedy, but also has lessons within those that speech as well.
Sharks, pencils, and Ben Affleck, baby.
they lean on the I'm going to wrap everything up and be the humble hero speech so much in the show. I can think of like five examples off the top of my head, probably from the first season alone, of someone having to give like a rousing speech at the end of an episode. I don't know if I've ever seen a show lean on that so much.
But what Community does too in this is Geoff gets the rousing speech post all is lost moment to help bring the conclusion and bring resolution, and he immediately gets called on his shit for it.
Yeah.
And I love that Community is willing to subvert, and it's willing to say no and point at you, and that it's willing to challenge people directly to their faces in the same way that Troy challenges Pierce a few minutes earlier on his ignorance on certain issues. Britta challenges Geoff on his bullshit. Even though Geoff has lied and conned his way into success, we need to see why he's good at his job. And this bullshit rousing speech, the entire time I'm sitting there being like, God, he's a damn good lawyer. Like, Jeff Winger is really good at his job, even if it just means that he's full of shit.
So, yeah, like that does come bring our pilot, this episode of Community, really to an end for the most part, without giving too many details or giving away too many jokes about it. Because I will say, and we can just jump right into things we loved about this pilot. This show has such a wide range of jokes, right? Yes, there are the very dumb jokes about saying, rather than saying a car has seat warmers, it has ball warmers. And that's the only thing I am going to call the seat warmers in my car from now on. Like, but then also having much larger jokes about like the concept of talking about the Breakfast Club throughout the pilot and then finally giving the cigarette speech in the midst of it. There is a joke for every type of humor almost in 22 minutes, which is a wild thing to say, but credit to Dan Harmon because he did it. And I was like, oh yeah, I'm a 360 degree comedy enjoyer rather than just one dimensional in this instance. I'm curious, Rich, what were some things that you loved about this pilot that maybe we didn't talk about?
Well, to jump or to add on to what you were saying, Geoff, I think like brevity is really key in this pilot. They have done a tremendous job of keeping the conflict of the show, we talked a bit about this before we started recording, but Dan Harmon very like publicly uses like a hero's journey type story framing style for this. The Geoff being trapped at the community college for a minimum of 4 years is already established. So you already have the timeline. And
isn't an associate's degree at a community college 2 years?
Yes, it is.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, but he's going for his law degree.
Yeah,
at the community college.
I remember there was spoiler alert, most of us on this, if not all of us, have watched a lot of this show. There's a great joke that they do in one of the episodes, like in season 3, where they're like, some people just take one course at a time. So a degree that would normally take 2 years can take upwards of 8 years. And it's just like
so stupid.
I love me some ham-fistedness. But yeah, I really do think that they just do an excellent job of keeping this sharp and to the point, and it's so easily like you don't even get a glimpse of what the show is going to eventually become, even in episode 2 from this pilot yet. It is very simple, like, oh, Geoff is stuck here after lying about his bachelor's. Very funny that we got the Columbia joke on this of all weeks. And then eventually, like, he's stuck with this study group and has to bring these people around. But they put Geoff immediately on this hero's journey thing. And I just think it's like a really great choice. And it seems like a nod to the comic books that he loved. Obviously he's going to get revealed as basically Danny Pudi's character and be just like this massive film buff and turn everything into a movie.
Max, I'm curious about, from your perspective, were there any things that we didn't talk about that you loved about this pilot?
I love that for a pilot, Jeff Winger feels so lived in and his ethos feels so clearly established. Mm-hmm. You have this guy who basically lays it out in Professor Duncan, played by John Oliver's office. He's going to fake his way through. He's going to meet some women. He's going to get out and get back to his life. His entire thing is, I just want to get back to where I was. I want to complete this journey and get back to my known. Even the Jeff Winger outfit in this pilot is so specific and so indicative of who he is. He's got an Oxford shirt, a gray sweater, a sport coat, and Adidas track pants. And what I love about this is that so often in TV, you kind of frame middle up to get those establishing shots. But when you pull out, you see that he's a schlub on the bottom. But every time you close in on Geoff, he looks presentable. He looks polished and put together. And I think it's important to set up how that separates. By the end of this, he even acknowledges, I am full of shit. I have gotten by on nothing but pure charisma my entire life and faked my way through life. And now for the first time, I'm being pushed to try, and I don't know if I could do it. And that's the moment where, Richie brought up the hero's journey. Your character gets that helper. They get that outside thing that's willing to lift them up and say, We will help guide you through the unknown and help you succeed on your journey. And Geoff gets this really lovely arc in 22 minutes that we saw it. I know exactly who this is, what I need to know about him, and whether or not I'm down to continue following him on the rest of his journey in the unknown. Spoiler alert, I
am. Well, we talked about things that we loved. Let's talk about wait a minute moments, if we even have any. And like, I know we praised the brevity of this pilot, but at the same time, there are parts of me that are like, God damn it, Dan Harmon, you wrote characters so well, and you gave me just enough of them that I want more. I'm not okay with the Costco sampler. I want a full-on serving of John Oliver's Professor Duncan. I want a full serving of the Dean. Like, just from that exposition speech at the top, I'm like, holy shit, who are these people? And my wait a minute moment turns out to be more praise for this pilot.
I was going to say, your wait a minute moment's a compliment for the pilot.
Yeah, it's just like, you made characters that are so absurd and intriguing that I just want more of these characters.
I just love the choice of John Oliver's character being given like the Dead Poets Society teacher moment of like, I'm going to teach you guys an extremely valuable lesson, but he almost gets his ass beat because of it. It's just like what a beautiful moment that was.
I mean, did either of you, my wait a minute moment turned out not to be a wait a minute moment. Were there any things that you saw that caused you pause?
I actually have one, and it's about late 2000s NBC comedies as a whole.
Okay.
Anthropologists are going to study American comedy and what made humans laugh in the late aughts. And they are going to be so confused as to what our fixation was with a certain calendar period known as Shark Week. Because this show hinges on a Shark Week reference. There's a very quotable and often used in many high school yearbook quotes from our senior years moment from 30 Rock with Tracy Jordan saying to live every week like a Shark Week. Shark Week. Shark Week. Not Shark Week. And people are going to wonder...
I've been in New Orleans. I've had Shark Week.
People are going to look back and wonder, what was Shark Week? Why did they care so much about Shark Week? What do the sharks have to do with it? What is their fascination with Shark Week?
It is a truly fascinating thing that like really caught on popularity wise. It's literally just like we're only doing shark documentaries for a week on one TV network.
Rich, I'm curious, do you have any wait a minute moments?
I do actually. I was going back toward the end of the pilot when all of the people in the study group were kind of like at each other's throats for a while. And I was sitting there as like, did they really establish why they all had to still be sitting there after they all like were insulting each other? It's like they can leave. And then it didn't feel like enough of a reason to keep those people around arguing with each other. Like I know they all want to do like pretty decently well in Spanish, I guess, but not that much. It just like it felt like something that maybe a deleted scene from this would have explained, but it didn't feel like compelling enough of a reason to keep those characters there.
Yeah, and I just remembered one last wait a minute moment. I was so upset that we did not get the actual opening credits for the show with the song, At Least It Was Here by the 88. Like, that's such a great song for just this show, and
they do play a bit of it at the end, right?
They play like a small bit. They give you just enough of a taste where you're like, "Ooh, what is this?" And
it's Geoff's first wait a minute again.
Yeah, and then I want more.
Want more song.
Yeah, I want. Give me more song. Give me more show. We do have an in-flight question, and thank you so much for submitting those. And our in-flight question is: Community famously had a variety of different episode formats, including a claymation episode, an animated episode, musicals, Christmas specials, and even a video game episode. What is a TV show or a movie you wish took one of these formats, and what would it look like?
Oh, I love a bottle episode. That's an amazing question. So this question does come from my brother Peter. And his answer was that he wants one of the scenes from The Wire specifically to be in claymation, and it's one where they only say fuck to each other the entire scene. That's a terrific answer. I wish I could think of a better one than that, but I gotta say, I feel like Mad Men would be like an exceptional claymation episode, especially one where Don is at his drunkest.
I was gonna say if you claymation the episode where they play the prank on Roger Sterling and he has to go up the 3 flights of stairs and then pukes in the office as claymation,
throwing up oysters and White Russians or whatever it was.
Max, what about you?
I need to claymation the episode of The Sopranos titled Pine Barrens, where Christopher and Paulie get lost in the woods on a snowy day trying to chase a mobster down, and then they can't find their way out of the woods again. And I just need to see claymation mobsters firing guns, Italian accents, just everything that show has. I need claymation Tony Soprano, Paulie Walnuts, Bobby Bacalari later on in that one. I need claymation Sopranos.
So for myself, I was thinking about this a lot because, like, one, we could go and try to make something super dark a little bit lighter by, like, doing claymation Law and Order SVU. But then I also thought, what would be a really funny version of, like, taking one of these formats and that being someone's hell. And I think The Good Place should do a Christmas special episode because then you have, and like, it would be very funny if it was like a Jewish person there are Jewish Christmas specials, but you have a Jewish person in a Christmas special, and then like that is their personal bad place that they have to deal with and live with. That would be
they just
very,
live
very
in a
funny.
Hallmark Christmas movie.
Exactly.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, also, like, most Christmas specials are probably written by Jewish comedy teams, so so you're welcome for the idea of Christmas as it is right now.
Well, Rich, you can thank your brother, and thanks for that in-flight question. Let's talk a little bit more about Community itself. 6 seasons, 110 episodes, and a movie, and a movie soon to come. The first 5 seasons of this show were on NBC. And then a weird thing happened where NBC decided, we're done with this, and let's have it have a nice ending of sorts. And then there was this thing called Yahoo Screen that doesn't exist anymore. And they said, NBC, what if we paid you all of this money for the rights to Community so we could do another season of it? And that was then the 6th season of this show.
Oh, it was so disappointing. No spoilers, but my God, they didn't get Dan Harmon back for that, right? They didn't, like, he wasn't involved.
What if I told you he was involved as a showrunner on that season? Yeah, I mean, it was interesting because it was a bit of a tumultuous experience for Dan Harmon. He did the first 3 seasons of this show, and then NBC. Dan Harmon's definitely a taste, and a unique one at that. And NBC decided, hey, we got this. So they brought in 2 separate people to try and be the showrunner of the show for the 4th season, and then, or for the 4th season and it did not work out as well as they thought. And then Dan Harmon came back. But like, one of the most interesting parts of this, and Max, you sort of talked about like the history of comedies and especially NBC. This show was set to replace The Office for its time slot originally on NBC. And that is asking a very big thing, even from late seasons of The Office. It started off at about like topping off around like 5 or 6 million viewers. By the final season that was on TV, because Yahoo Screen, I could not find any numbers about viewability. Who fucking knew? It was at around 3 million. And that doesn't sound like much for network.
That sounds crazy for Yahoo Screen.
No. 3 million for final season on NBC.
Got it.
And you might be thinking, wow, like, this is a really well-known TV show. It topped off at only 97, but it's been included on multiple lists for being one of the top TV shows of all time. Variety recently put out a list and they said this is the number 100, which is really insane to say. But a lot of that viewership came from streaming, which is this show where this show really benefited as a whole. Max, it looks like you had something.
Yeah, just hearing you talk about this just reminds me. I just remember like the thing about Community when it was on the air was that it felt like every time it came back from hiatus, it was on a different day in a different time slot. Like I just remember Community always changing hands, and then these numbers sound good to us in 2024, where shows I think get 6 people live, just 6. But when I was doing my own research for it, I found out that it was competing like directly against The Big Bang Theory, and so it's just like if you're Mainstream America, are you going to watch the real out there meta comedy that keeps changing time slots, or are you going to watch Bazinga? And that's why the show only peaked at, what would you say, Geoff, 97?
Yeah, 97th of all of the TV shows that were on, which is insane. I'd be remiss to not talk about some of the guest stars that were on this show.
Oh, crazy.
Because like John Oliver was just the pilot, but we also got like Brie Larson for a couple of episodes, Tony Hale, Jack Black, John Goodman, LeVar Burton, Nathan Fillion, Betty White, Giancarlo Esposito. Like Drew Carey was even on for a small bit. Like it's insane what this show did and the pull it was able to have to say like, hey, you want to be our professor for the season, or do you want to be on just for an episode to be the different character that you might meet at a community college? With that said, this show did have on-set disputes because of a certain person we talked about before, and that caused certain people to unfortunately leave the show.
Danny Pudi.
Yeah, Danny
it's like,
Pudi.
Fuck y'all, I'm going to DuckTales.
But like, it's very interesting.
I'm on DuckTales, Larry.
I am curious from the perspective of after Donald, what does a world look like where Donald Glover maybe isn't the person that leaves Community, but instead Chevy Chase is the person who leaves Community a little bit sooner than he did at that point in time. And we could talk about all of the success that a majority of these actors found after this show. But it is one of the complicated parts of its history that it was not the most, in sync cast that you could have.
No.
Because
Geoff,
of one person.
are you pitching different timelines and different theories and infinite chaos theory, perhaps?
Yeah, I mean, I sort of am. I'm very proud of this cast. This show started syndicating in 2012. So basically only 2.5 years after it debuted, they were already pulling in extra revenue from Comedy Central. It's been shown abroad as well. And then let's talk a little bit about awards. As far as awards go, this show was nominated for 60 different awards and won 11 of them. And that does include a Emmy win as well.
Hey.
And that is for the Christmas special and that was for an animation-based award. So,
Nice.
Hey, we love our Creative Arts Awards here at TV Pilots License.
Bottle episodes.
And we love when an Emmy is an Emmy, no matter what you say. But with that being said, like that is the history of this show. There is a movie. There is a script, supposedly. I see something from Variety every week saying the script is done. I just need to see that movie on screen so I can consume it with almost all of the original cast. Because, one person I heard was not invited. But Rich, with that said, what is your game of the week?
So this one, honestly, I've been like trying to make these harder questions for you guys in previous weeks. You guys just know so much about the show. I can't imagine that this trivia is going to baffle either of you. But let's give it a shot. Here's some community trivia. Jeff Winger, played by Joel McHale, was named after the leading character in leading character role in what movie? A, Stripes, B, Groundhog Day, C, Tootsie, D, Meatballs?
Well, they make a Stripes joke in this pilot too. Like they literally are like, you're Bill Murray. You're a Bill Murray character, like in Stripes. So I'm gonna say Stripes.
It is Stripes. They named it after, I believe it's John Winger, his Bill Murray's character in Stripes. All right, number 2, the Russo brothers, directors of Captain America: Winter Soldier and Avengers: Endgame, got the job because executives loved their Community episode based on this Western. Tombstone, Once Upon a Time in the West, Dirty Harry, Fistful of Dollars.
It's a Fistful of Dollars, I believe.
That is correct. It's Fistful of Yeah, this is too easy. All right.
It wasn't their work on You, Mia Dupree. It wasn't You, Mia Dupree that got them the job. Helping the biggest action film of all time.
Oh my god.
Follow Max's You, Me, and Dupree rewatch podcast. Yeah, Max, me, and Dupree.
You, me, and DePod.
Oh, beautiful. Finally, the man who played Starburns, the weird, curmudgeonly, and slightly perverted character, was at one point the head writer of this Doom comedy show. Or was a head writer of this Doom comedy show. Mulaney, The Dana Carvey Show, Maya and Marty, Heil Honey, I'm Home, a real sitcom about Hitler and Eva Braun that move into a suburb next to a Jewish family.
Max, what are you thinking?
Gosh. Oh, God, yeah. I'm trying to think what he could have written for. I'm going to say
he still writes now.
I'm going to say Mulaney.
What about you, Geoff?
I'm going to say The Dana Carvey Show. I think you found out about Heil and just were like, I want to tell everyone about this.
You're correct. Geoff's really digging into my brain right now. He was one of the head writers, or he was one of the writers for The Dana Carvey Show, which infamously got, I believe, 8 episodes and then canceled after having like maybe one of the best casts and writing rooms of all time. And yes, Heil Honey, I'm Home is a real sitcom that got 1 episode and then pulled off the air in the UK.
We might need to do an episode on the Dana Carvey Show because that is.
I thought you were going to say the other one.
I'm so glad you said the Dana Carvey Show.
We might need 3 Jews talk about Heil. Well, Rich, thank you so much for that game of the week. Even though it was a little bit easier for us, I think that it was still a fun one for all of us. Well, gentlemen, our flight is coming to a land, but before we go, I have 2 questions for each of you. And one is, based off of the pilot, would you continue watching this show? But the second one is, famously, we have been told 6 seasons and a movie. It has been preached 6 seasons and a movie.
God, that's such a smart marketing tactic.
Putting
that in the show.
Do you think the world of Community and the fans of Community need a movie?
I mean, this is one of I wanted to pose a question to all you guys, but I we talked a little bit offline of what cast member we think we watch the most hours of at this point, and it is a truly difficult question. The more I go into that, the more I go into the actual cast, and I would love to see every one of these characters come back. I would love to see all the actors like get along with each other. That sounds nice. And if Chevy's not coming back, that sounds even better. But yeah, I would definitely
really, because he's the person I've seen the most of.
Is he really?
Oh yeah, like historically.
I mean, if you figure like how many TV episodes equal 1 movie, the numbers might add up after a while.
Rich, I just know you're watching the new Lion King on repeat every day, so Donald Glover's been sneaking up on you.
But that's a 2-for-1. You get John Oliver in that too.
Yes,
that's a 2-for-1.
Yeah, I think my answer, it was really hard. For a long time I thought it was Alison Brie because I've watched all of Mad Men, I've watched all of this, I watched all of Glow. But I really think it's John Oliver after all the seasons on HBO at this point.
Yeah. I mean, that's the funny thing.
And The Daily Show.
That's the funny thing about this cast has found so much success for the most part outside of this show. There's a lot of shows that we do where you sort of see like, oh, I know X person for this and only this. But like to be able to say, oh no, they went on to do all of these different things outside of the show, or they went on to produce, like Joel McHale produces a lot of stuff right now.
Yeah.
And it's really impressive. Like that just speaks to the job that was done of finding a lot of really talented people and saying, okay, cool, give them good ratings, see if they can perform. And then people watching from the sidelines and being like, what if we got said talented people and saw what they wanted to do or they wanted to make outside of this? But not too much about that. Rich, you didn't answer either of my questions.
I did. No, I said, I'm giving it another shot, and or I'm giving episode 2 a watch, and then for sure I'm giving the movie a watch too. I'm definitely go for it.
Max, what about you?
Rich, to your other question of who you've seen the most of, there's like one person in LA whose answer is Ken Jeong because he was their physician for years.
Oh, that person's very ill.
That person doesn't live anymore.
Yeah, I didn't think about how that joke would go over when I said it.
Max, big Masked Singer watcher. That's
Jesus.
Take everything out of the equation that you know about Community. If you're listening to this podcast episode, you probably know all the lore, all the inside jokes. You probably sing the Pierce Hawthorne lyrics to whenever you hear Bruce Hornsby's The Way It Is. Just on a pilot on its own, it is so well structured. It teases little crumbs. It enters late and gives you this like welcome, worn-in feeling. I just think that it's so effective in setting up its world, setting up its characters, and absolutely makes you want to continue on with the little teases you got, as Geoff has alluded to. And do we need this? I think they very heavy character-driven comedy like a Community movie works. And even if it is fan service like the second Sex and the City movie, who cares? If something like this can unite people for 90 minutes and they could get some laughs, then more power to them. I think that the jokes will fly and people will have fun with it, even if it's just a warm, fuzzy feeling they watch one time.
Community in Dubai is what Max is saying.
That would actually be one of the funniest versions of that movie for sure.
And don't address it. Don't address that you're doing Sex in the City too. Never address it.
Greendale is just in Dubai the entire time would be the funny. Would be such a funny answer. For myself, I think if you have watched the pilot and you're like, I'm not sure if I want to give the second episode a shot, give the second episode a shot just for the Spanish rap at the end, because I like
that really cemented this as my show.
I think about that rap at least once a week. Like at least once a week I find myself singing that to myself. And it's like, yeah, I do both the Troy and Abed parts because who else is going to do them? I love this show so much. And I think Max, I think you said it really well. As far as the movie goes, there's such a devoted group of people who love this show with all of their heart that this is the bow on the show that we've been seeking. The Yahoo Screen season of this show, while I think it was done in good faith, was not what this show needed as far as a legacy. If it was 5 seasons and then they decided the 6th season was like a COVID script roundtable that they did on Zoom, like I would have been like, great, that's all I need, and then maybe we get a movie. This is the ultimate chapter of the show that we've been waiting for, that we've really missed, and I think that if wherever it shows up, if it's on Peacock, if it's in a theater, if it's on, a pay to watch it on some random fucking website, I think all of us are ready for it and are really excited to see it no matter where they are, whether it is at Greendale or in Dubai. But with that being said, our flight has come to a land. But before we go, where can we find you two gentlemen? Max, where can we find you?
You can find me 3 blocks from your home and on all things social media at Maxwell Sig.
Oh God, that's so terrifying. Rich, where can we find you?
This is our spookiest episode to date. You can find me. I told Pierce 1,000 times I never wanted to meet LeVar in person. I just wanted a picture. You can't disappoint a picture. And you can also find me on Instagram at Damn That's Rich. You can find original sketch comedy from Max and myself on Instagram and TikTok at Dadwagon Comedy.
And you can find me trying to figure out where one becomes a licensed Spanish tutor. Hola, my name is Jefe. But if
Bienvenuto.
But if you are looking for me on social media, you can find me at Run Geoff Run. You can find the TV Pilot's License anywhere you listen to podcasts, as well as YouTube. Make sure to like and subscribe. It does really help us out. And make sure to leave us some comments as far as what you want to hear next, whether it's at the bottom of this Spotify episode or in the comments on our YouTube video. If you do want to leave us an in-flight question, you can either shoot us an email at tvpilotslicense@gmail.com or give us a call at 213-290-1713 and leave us a voicemail. Make sure to watch out for some sneak previews of some of the stuff that we have coming up, because we'd love to put out a flight schedule here and there. But with the plane landed and the seatbelt sign off, we look forward to flying the bright skies of the TV world with you again soon. And until then,
there is no God, booyah booyah.
See you, everybody.